Hey guys, welcome back. On the speed painting process today, I want to take you on a journey beneath the surface. If you're new to the channel, my name is Florian. I'm a concept artist and art director at Firebolt Studio. In this video, we are continuing the series about the work I did for World of Warcraft back in 2021. And instead of giving you an overall review of all the work that I did, I'm gonna focus on just one piece of art and demonstrate my process and how I think about concept art for this kind of project. When I start a concept like this, I'm not just thinking about a static image, I'm thinking about the player's experience. For this specific zone, I imagined a long, continuous journey. Picture a player starting high up on the surface of Azeroth, perhaps on a sunny beach, and then descending deep down, moving through claustrophobic caves and dark crevices, until suddenly the space opens up into a vast bioluminescent underground ocean. Geologically, is it probable? Maybe not. But as concept artists, we aren't bound by geology. We are bound by fantasy. I found the idea of this hidden underwater world incredibly compelling. I didn't have a week to spend on this. It was a relatively quick study, but I wanted to see if I could capture the specific mood of discovery. I started this piece very simply, almost purely abstract. If you look at the beginning of the footage, you'll see I'm not drawing things yet. I'm just laying down colors. A warm yellow, a vibrant pink, and a very punchy cyan blue. Why this palette? Well, underwater scenes can easily become monochromatic, just endless shades of blue. By introducing pinks and yellows early on, I am establishing a tropical, fresh, and vibrant look. I want the water to feel oxygenated and alive, not dead and deep. At this stage, I advise you not to overthink. I'm just blocking in a ground plane and an horizon line to ground myself, but otherwise I'm just messing around. I'm imagining what is the texture of the seafloor. Is it soft sand, crushed shells? I'm letting the brush strokes suggest the answer. You'll see me flipping the canvas horizontally quite a bit. If you're a student, you might wonder why I do this. When you stare at an image for too long, your brain starts to fix errors automatically. You stop seeing the slant in the horizon or the skew in the perspective. Flipping the canvas shocks your brain. It forces you to see the image with fresh eyes. It also helps with what Bob Ross called happy accidents. I'm looking for shapes in the abstraction that I didn't intentionally paint. Maybe a smudge looks like a cave entrance, maybe a brush stroke looks like a natural fissure. I'm basically trying to work with the chaos instead of trying to control it right away. I actually started with the idea of a giant submarine mushroom here, and I tried it for a few minutes, but I realized quickly it didn't feel credible for this biome. So I scrapped it. Never be afraid to kill an idea if it isn't working. Pivoting is part of the process. Once I abandoned the mushrooms, I went back to the environment. I decided to focus on a fissure, a crack in the seabed. Compositionally, this gives me a strong focal point in the background. I framed this fissure with large dark structures on the left and right. This creates a window of a negative space where I can show off that clear, vibrant blue water. This decision led me to the main subject of the midground, giant corals. Now, World of Warcraft has a very specific style. We have plenty of forests and caves, but aside from Vajir or Nejatar, we haven't done massive coral forest often. I thought it would be a fun visual language to explore, using the verticality of corals to mimic trees. Let's pause on the technique for a moment, because this is a huge time saver for professional work. I'm using a hard round brush to carve out the silhouette of the coral. The silhouette is the most important part. If the shape is readable in black, it will be readable in color. Once I have a shape I like, I block the layer transparency or lock the pixels and paint the details inside that shape. Here's the trick. I don't paint every single coral from scratch. I use the transform tool to duplicate, warp, and resize the shapes I've already painted. It's almost like matte painting, but instead of using photographs, I'm using my own painted assets. This allows me to fill the background quickly. By reusing the same visual language, I create a rhythm in the image. It looks cohesive because it literally is the same texture, just repurposed. This is how you keep your speed up without sacrificing quality. Creating depth underwater is tricky because you have atmospheric perspective, or rather hydro-atmospheric perspective. Things get blue and desaturated very quickly the further away they are. I'm establishing clear planes, a foreground, a midground, a background, and a deep background. I use repetition to sell this depth. Look at the particles and little shells on the ground. In the foreground they are thick, textured and distinct, and as they recede into the background they become just simple dots. I also used flow lines, swirls of particles that suggest currents or school of fish. These aren't just for decoration, they are leading lines. They guide the viewer's eyes through the composition, pointing them toward where I want them to look. Now let's talk about the main point of interest. I felt the image needed a story. A landscape is nice, but a landscape with a story is better. I decided to add a shipwreck. Now here's a pro tip. I actually grabbed the silhouette from a different artwork that I did for this project. I dropped it into this canvas. Even though I end up painting over it completely, having that base saved me from blank canvas syndrome. It gave me a starting point. I didn't want this to look like a freshly sunken ship. I wanted to look ancient and inhabited. I imagined maybe a tribe of Murlocs or... yeah, those guys. Or some lost underwater civilization had made this wreck their home. To convey this, I added warm orange lights coming from inside. That contrast between the cold blue water and the warm orange windows instantly creates a feeling of home or life amidst the deep. You might notice that I jump around the canvas a lot. I'll work on the boat for 2 minutes, then jumps to the coral, then to the ground. I like to think of my attention span as a limited energy bar for the painting. If I spend 100% of my energy detailing the boat,
not enough mana.
By the time I get to the background, I'll be exhausted and the background will look sloppy. I try to distribute my energy wisely. I spend it where it counts on the focal points. The midground coral is crucial because it's close enough for the player to touch, so I spend energy there. The far background, I can afford to use less energy there. It's about managing your own fatigue as much as managing the image. As a concept artist for games, I'm never just making a pretty picture. I'm writing a manual for the 3D team. So when I add vegetation, I'm thinking about the production pipeline. If this zone were to be built in-game, we wouldn't model a unique plant for every single spot on the ground. We would create a kit. Maybe 3 variations of the fern, 3 variations of a rock, and 2 types of coral. So in my painting, I try to mimic that to some extent. I'm adding small silhouettes on the ground, mossy rock, anemones, algae, and repeating them with slight variations. I'm showing the 3D artist, here's the kit you need to build to dress this level. It makes the concept functional, not just artistic. We are in the final stretch now, and this is where we add the love to the image to sell the idea to the art directors. I create a new layer set to multiply mode and paint large soft shadows across the ground. This breaks up the monotony of the sound. It suggests that there are things above us, clouds or even giant leviathans, why not, casting shadows down. It adds mystery. Finally, I refine the hierarchy. We could say in the way that the wreck is the king and the corals are like the queen, the small saturated fish and the little sparkles, well, those are like the Easter eggs. They are the final details that reward the viewer for looking closely. Please keep in mind that everything I'm talking about in this video is something I actively think about when doing these sort of paintings. Also, this is a very, very rough painting. I spent only 2.5 hours on this, with the objective of starting a discussion with the creative team, not delivering a final illustration. Depending on the kind of clients you're working with, delivering such a rough sketch could be misunderstood as a lack of work. But for some productions, It is vital to be able to showcase ideas in a very brief manner in order to help your team moving forward rapidly. The team could have asked to refine this piece further, think about the shapes of the coral, of the wreck, create interesting vegetation design, but they didn't. Because our goal here was to make as many of these paintings as possible and pitch ideas, not get into the intricate details of the world. And there we have it, a journey from the surface to the deep, built up from abstract colors into a structured concept. I hope understanding my thought process from the color choices to the production mindset helps you in your own work. Don't be afraid to reuse your own assets and remember to manage your energy wisely. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.